How's it going, everyone? Bree United here. Got a couple of conversations I've been having with friends in regards to the Netflix show High Score, and also a topic of do we take modern gaming for granted? Now, why do these two topics come together? Well, in the first episode of the show, I actually saw this game, which I purchased back in the 1980s, and this game was touted as the worst game ever made, and in one way was credited with bringing down the video game kind of empire of Atari at the time. That seems hard to believe nowadays. So what we're going to dive into is what it was like getting a game back in the 1980s, and we'll then move it forward a little bit into what it's like today and maybe some of the symptoms of today's gaming culture when it comes to how you purchase games, how you communicate around games, and also sites like Metacritic and maybe how that plays in. So let's do a dive into it. Would definitely love your comments. We'll see you there. So let's do a little time hop back in time to the 1980s and talk about how games were actually acquired. For me, it was a trip to Toys R Us. And at Toys R Us, there was one row that I remember behind glass where all the games were stored. You would have to walk down, take a look, see the front cover, and make a decision solely based on that. You couldn't actually pick them up, take a look at them. Obviously, theft would have been a problem, so they kept them behind glass. These games you knew nothing about. You had absolutely no internet at the time. You maybe had some friends in your neighborhood that owned it, and that was a driving factor. But normally you were shooting in the dark. You were hoping that this game that you're picking up was going to be up to, the quality level that you were expecting, and you were able to put some time into it. More times than not, that was not the outcome that would happen. And what happened was you knew you were going to be committed to that game for a considerable amount of time because there was not going to be another trip to Toys R Us, at least not for me. So to put those trips into perspective to Toys R Us, imagine you were able to go once a month. You would end up with 12 games. Doesn't seem a lot in today's standards. By the way, thanks Mom and Dad for all the childhood purchases that you made on my video game addiction. Growing up today is an amazing time period for games. But there's also some strange side effects, and these are the conversations that I've been having with my friends and even some of my kids, is we have so many games, and the meaningfulness of these games to us seems to be diminished from when I grew up. That maybe it's the commitment, maybe it's the struggle of getting a game back in the day that led me to having a bit more of an emotional connection when I got it, wanting to play the game through. Today, I can get 2 free games per week on the Epic Game Store for doing nothing other than just downloading it. I look at my Steam library, I'm absolutely terrified at the amount of games I have that I haven't even played. And I look at that and still think, wow, I'm a little bored right now. What game should I play? This speaks of a strange environment that I never would have forecast, coming out of the 1980s with the accessibility of games. The other aspect you have today is just a tremendous amount of information, opinions on games, just the media that we're talking to each other right now on. We are so connected today to even the developers of games. You look at early access games, you look at games like Eiyuden Chronicle that I've talked about in a couple of videos. I was on an earlier chat and YouTube live stream with them. I mean, that's incredible connection. I reached out to some of my childhood heroes that were developers, Mail Order Monsters developer, which immediately emailed me back, and we chatted about the game that he wrote. You had no accessibility like that back when I grew up. You'd have to write a letter. I mean, a physical letter. Maybe you could fax if you had a connection, but what a different world it is today. So it's really strange to me, and this is kind of the crux of the conversation that I'd like to have with you watching it is, how do you feel around this? Is this something in your gaming that you feel has changed? Maybe you're a lot younger than me. Maybe you're older. How has the change from accessibility of games affected you? I'd love to hear in the comments. In conclusion, I really don't know how I feel about this topic. It was asked by a friend of mine of many years, who I think asked it as one of those Zen riddles. What is the sound of one hand clapping type of thing? And when I really think about it, it's a very difficult question. And I think it may be because he and I went through that time period where gaming was really difficult to get. It was not a downloadable media. It was a much different time. There's so many wonderful things about gaming today, but this is one of those things that really pull at you, and maybe it's pulling at the nostalgia of being able to go to a store and pick out a game with your parents, and knowing that you were making a commitment to that game, for a considerable amount of time till you would next go and find another one, and just the unknown that you had no idea if this was a good game or not. So I would really like to thank every one of you for sticking around. Would really appreciate a like. And if you like the content, as always, please subscribe. And final shout out, I would like to open my heart to the fans, the family of Chadwick Boseman, who unfortunately lost his life in his battle with cancer. So really sad for not just fans of Marvel, but fans of humanity.